Okay, so I'm going to talk about nervous system regulation in this video. And I was trying to decide how to start it. And I was like, maybe I should give like a technical or somewhat technical explanation of what it actually is. And I'm on I got ChatGPT right in front of me. And it says nervous system regulation is your body's ability to move between activation and rest without getting stuck in either. Simple, not fluffy, and it gives some photos. The facts first, there's a lot here. It has 3 primary states: mobilization, fight, flight, rest and connection, and shutdown. So basically like fight, flight, or freeze. And a lot of this stuff is like therapy stuff that I'm not going to go into, but regulation means you can enter activation without panic, exit activation without crashing, rest without guilt, return to power without forcing. Dysregulation is when the system gets stuck. Always on, so anxiety, control, hyperproductivity, always off. Numbness, avoidance, procrastination, and burnout cycles. What it is not, this is the last bit I'm going to say, not being calm all the time, not softness as identity, not bypassing ambition, and not breathwork as a personality. Okay? So I'm going to give you my input on nervous system regulation and what I've seen. Now, I have found that nervous system regulation can literally and is literally delaying, I want to say, thousands of women, at least, maybe tens of thousands, maybe even 100,000 plus women from stepping into their dreams, their desires, and moving into who they're called to be because of misunderstanding this concept. I don't know if you call it a concept, but you know what I mean. And they're also leaving tens of thousands, more likely millions, maybe even billions of dollars on the table, literally. So, and delaying their dreams maybe even a decade, putting it off into the future, maybe never to achieve it ever. And so, okay, a little bit of backstory of like, how did this become a buzzword thing and like, what is it and all that kind of stuff. So back in 2015, the online coaching space was like a gold rush, and female coaches, including myself, were making a lot of money and a lot of money quickly. And the manifestation world was new, and I think the right word is ripe for people to get in there and make money and just dominate in this area. And it was there was a lot of beginner friendly manifestation work where people made a lot of money. I mean, a lot of money. And a lot of them were really good, and some of them were helped the coaching space become known as very scammy and not so great. And when it was about 3 to 4 years, I was running a mid 6-figure company for about 3.5, 4 years of that period. And I was having my own spiritual gut checkpoint of, do I need to go deeper in my work personally, because I'm either going to be coaching a lot more people at a much higher level, and I want to make sure that I'm covered in my knowledge and all of those things. And I was also having some I don't know if trauma is the right word, but I was having some experiences that were showing me that maybe I had been moving past my nervous system capacity at the time. And I am not somebody who can, if I can be hands-on and can really pay attention to a client and intuitively know how to guide them, that's different. But coaching tens of, dozens of people at a time when I was wondering about this area did not feel right and did not feel safe. And so I kept a small one-on-one coaching practice with people that I knew were able to move and all of those things. And so what I ended up finding was that I was, when in terms of manifestation and, self-exploration work, whatever you want to call it, the higher you achieve things, the more success you have, the more it reveals things you need to clean out so that you can move to higher levels. And I found some stuff that I needed to clear out. And does everybody need to do this? No, not to the level that I did. And this is not something to brag about or anything like that. It was my personal journey. And what I really emphasized during this time was that I wanted to not push results. I wanted to build a safety feeling inside my body and in my mind that I didn't need to rush anything. And it created a really safe environment for me to heal deeply. And I was wondering when the time came for me that I was going to start coaching on a bigger scale with higher level people, what was going to be the indicator for me between the line between going too fast and too slow. What were those indicators? And I didn't really understand nervous system regulation stuff at that time. I just knew that I had some trauma that I needed to work through. And I wasn't quite aware on how to guide someone around their nervous system at that time. And I'm not a nervous system expert, but I do know enough with ChatGPT that you can easily check to see if your nervous system can handle to go to a certain level. Now, I'm not saying that's the only thing that you need to do in terms of nervous system regulation work, but I think it's enough if you're working with, other people and all of those things. So, okay. So with nervous system regulation work, what happened? Well, back in 2015, there was, the rage of manifestation coaches came through and people were making a lot of money, but there was also quite a bit of women that were manifesting, that were going to manifestation experts, so-called manifestation experts and experts that didn't have the maturity and awareness of these clients who had extensive trauma or complex issues that they weren't aware to be able to see. And these people manifested these big results, but yet their bodies responded, whether they had some sort of massive weight gain, got into really bad toxic relationships, basically vibrational alignment, meaning if one thing goes up, like your business, and you're not in a state of being able to hold that new level of expansion and abundance, then something else is going to fall apart to show you that, hey, there's some other stuff you need to look at. You need to deal with this trauma here, because it's not going to go away just because you make more money. And a lot of those things were too complex for someone like me to feel in integrity to be able to even just guide them to manifest more when I wasn't sure whether or not it was even a smart thing to do. And now I have clients that if they're going through something like that, I automatically say, you need to work with a therapist, and while we're working together, period, the end. And that part was solved, but I also knew that I needed to be energetically and emotionally and spiritually in a place where I felt confident enough to be able to hold space for whatever was going on in the way that I'm qualified. And so with nervous system regulation work became this whole big buzzword, because all the coaches, not all of them, it was kind of like it got cut down the middle. There were these trauma-informed coaches that were like, okay, we need to slow down and we need to, make sure that their nervous system can handle this, and we, results, physical results aren't the most important thing, and we need to do this and we need to do that, we need to do this, and slowing it down and really looking, almost like therapy. Not that therapy isn't bad, but just leaning more towards trauma-informed coaching, which usually is code for not the biggest physical results. Versus the big hypey coaches that, you're manifesting 7-figure months, a 7-figure year within 12 months, all of those types of results, which is great. And I was all for, and I had clients that did that. And I was like, I love that. It's fun. And it's, it was hard for me to know that I had the capacity to be able to help clients get those results while knowing I didn't feel safe to guide someone at that level when I was feeling unbalanced in my own ability to do that as well. And I was really blessed during that time because I attracted clients who got physical results, but also within the space that was safe for me to handle, and also attracted some beautiful clients that had deep character transformation that not only showed me the importance of character work, but also how profound it can be in changing someone's ability to get astronomical results physically. So while all that was happening, I came to this conclusion. It was kind of when ChatGPT came out. I realized, I was like, oh, okay, well, your nervous system, here, this is why I like the mind better. I like the mind better in terms of doing this kind of work, because your mind can give you, you can clearly find out where you're at with your mind, because it can tell you whether or not it's on the verge of shifting or not. Your nervous system, on the other hand, it doesn't speak out loud. It can give you signals, but it can't give you exact details on what's going on. So with your mind, if a client comes to me and they're saying, I feel like I'm on the verge, but I just can't seem to blankety blank, 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 I know exactly what's going on. If they say that their nervous system is, at this place or this place or this place, it's not always, you're not always as clear as to where they're at. If they're in a place of activation, but there's a feeling of not full alignment, then it's okay, well, where are we in that place? Are we closer to activation, or are we closer to needing to do more regulating work? And so, what was I saying? I'm going to give you some examples about what this looks like. I first stumbled upon this when I was I had reached the point where I was like, okay, it's time. It's time. It's time. And I was checking my getting into alignment, doing my mindset work, and all of a sudden, my body had a jolting feeling. And I was on a walk, and I remembered, and I was like, man, if this jolting thing in my nervous system would just stop doing this, I would be so in alignment for everything that I'm working on. And something came to me. It had to be the grace of God, that it was go to ChatGPT and ask if the jolting feeling in your body is actually signaling that your nervous system is dysregulated versus regulated. And sure enough, the jolting feeling was not dysregulation. It was that I was actually ready and aligned for the things that I wanted to do. And I was like, I wonder if pretty much all of my clients and my friends are doing the same thing. And sure enough, that was pretty much the same thing. And I had a couple of clients who I had just started working with who had brought the whole nervous system regulation thing to me. And they said, one of them had an interesting experience, because I was like, tell me about what's going on in your nervous system. And they said, well, I feel expansion, but I feel like a kind of like a clamping down, but it doesn't feel like it's like I'm collapsing. It feels like I'm just being, like there's like a not yet feeling. And I was like, okay. And sure enough, when I talked to ChatGPT about it, it was basically like, there's sometimes external things that need to get aligned for certain things to happen. And that doesn't mean it has to take weeks, months, years. It could be in 3 days or a day. It just depends. But the good thing was it was no longer about her nervous system. It was about her just making sure she had done everything that she needed to do in her mind to be aligned for what she was stepping into. There was another example. It's a very classic, basic example in the sense of, I don't know if basic's the right word, but you get my drift. I asked her, I was like, okay, so she wants to make $20K a month. And she was a classic example of, back in 2015, had manifested some really big stuff, and it ended up traumatizing her. And so she backed away and was like, I'm not manifesting anything until I know that I'm not going to be manifesting something that's going to traumatize the hell out of me. And I said to her, I was like, okay, what's your nervous system feeling when you step into the feeling of 20K a month? And she was like, well, actually, no. First I said, what about 40K a month? Because she hadn't aimed for 40K a month. She said, literally, I can feel I hear myself screaming, panic. That's a sign of dysregulation. You don't want to go there. She didn't want to go there. She's not supposed to go there yet. Doesn't mean she can't get there, but she's not there. And I said, what about 20K a month? She was like, ease, peace, clarity, expansion, excitement. That's a sign of regulation. Another example is, I had a client who, this was actually very interesting. I had a client who was about to step into a lot of visibility. And she was like, okay, this is weird. She's like, when I feel into the, being on big stages and stuff like that, I feel other people screaming in panic. I'm not in panic, but I feel other people screaming in panic. And I was like, okay, well, I go to ChatGPT for advice about this. I'm not going to not admit that. I do. And what I saw was that ChatGPT said that this is a very interesting type of dynamic, because what's going on is she's extremely spiritually gifted too, by the way. And what her nervous system is picking up on is her audience's response to what she brings to the table. So her audience isn't ready for these shifts, but that doesn't mean that she's not ready for them. So, and she's free to move, but she was taking on their responses on her own response, if that makes any sense. And so when she felt that, she was like, oh my God, this is so much freedom right now, right? And there was this chick that made a comment. She made a post, and I love her. I think she's bad as fuck. I just love her. She uses the F word more than I did back 10 years ago, which I didn't know it actually existed. But she said, I manifested a 7-figure business without regulating my nervous system. And on one hand, I'm like, I applaud you for being that bold. And I love the take on that, because there are far too many people out there that have been using their nervous system, the nervous system regulation as a way to stay small. At the same time, I have also been somebody who's experienced some trauma by moving past my nervous system, and don't think it's necessarily the best thing to do to encourage someone to push past something without proper coaching, therapy, et cetera, when it could possibly traumatize them. I know you can't predict the future, but I do think that there's a line. And there's a very simple way of figuring out what's going on in your nervous system. You just have to understand the educational part of it. And once you do, then you either know, okay, I need to do some more work around this, or this is my mind trying to trick me into thinking that this is my nervous system, and it's not. And I need to move forward. Period. The end. One last little bit of this. Your mind can literally make you like, and I noticed when all this came through, I was like, oh, my mind is literally saying, my internal dialogue was literally saying, everything is aligned, but your nervous system still needs the go. Like, it still needs the permission. It still needs this. Literally everything is aligned except your nervous system. The reality of it was that my nervous system had probably been there, but my mind didn't want me to know, because your mind it does everything in order to keep you protected, to keep you like the same way, because that's how our minds are wired. So give yourself a break. Just get your education and find out what's going on in your nervous system so you don't let it block you from your next level. I'll see you in the next video.